Our first survivor is Philip Estepp, underwent open heart surgery to receive a biological aortic valve replacement. Having the procedure at a younger age has given him a unique perspective on recovery, long-term health, and staying active. He currently teaches at North Dakota State University and enjoys spending his free time traveling and outdoors with his wife and 2 kids. Please welcome Philip.
All right, let's get started here. So thank you for the opportunity to speak here, and hopefully these personal anecdotes will be insightful for providers and maybe offer some insights to people who have a similar diagnosis or who are looking forward to, well, probably not looking forward, but who are expecting to have a similar procedure. So just as an overview, I was diagnosed at age 19 with bicuspid aortic valve with severe aortic regurgitation, and that was, again, identified when I was 19 years old. I went into the cardiologist due to palpitations, and they found the bicuspid heart valve. The palpitations might have been more due to excessive caffeine, lack of sleep, and stress that comes with being a college student, but happy discovery we found that aortic problem. So again, emphasizing what others have talked here today about, which is the need for screening, because that went missed until I was older. So medical management, it was just an issue of yearly follow-ups and echoes, intermittent use of low-dose lisinopril for afterload reduction, and at some point in the time between 19 and 30, and when I turned 34, the doctors did away with the lisinopril. Again, one of my favorite cardiology visits was when the doctor said, "Yeah, I don't need the lisinopril." He said, "You're just delaying the inevitable." And so I've adopted that philosophy in my life, and now I just think of things as delaying the inevitable. But so no more lisinopril, just monitoring. Surgical intervention, so at 34, just a couple years ago, I underwent aortic valve replacement with a bioprosthetic tissue. And that, again, was selected for reasons that others have touched on today, which is lifestyle choices and wanting to avoid the use of long-term warfarin. So what I wanted to emphasize in my brief kind of story here was emotional health and recovery and that aspect. So, just in cursory research for my presentation today, I found a lot of information out there, both on the American Heart Association's website and then in journals that cover the link between emotional health and then recovery post-surgery. There was also quite a bit of evidence or research on support systems, and I think Gina mentioned the need for people around you who care about you, who are there to support you. And I think for anybody who's gone through surgery, having that support system is a very big part of it. So I split my recovery up into 2 key phases, and these pretty much follow what my surgeon said I'd experienced. And he said the first 3 weeks would be the toughest, and once you make it through those first 3 weeks, then you just gotta make it through the next 3 months. So the first 3 weeks were really defined by that limited physical capacity. So no lifting, no strenuous activity. Now this was difficult because I had a 1-year-old at the time, and he insists on being carried around everywhere. And he's a pretty hefty 1-year-old, so I couldn't carry him around like he would like. And when they look up at you and want you to hold them and you're coming home from surgery, that's very difficult to deny them that. So that was, tugging on the heartstrings. The other issue was then, again, emphasizing that emotional aspect, and the psychological aspect was feeling pretty useless, not being able to do what I typically do around the house. And so I had this surgery in, I think, early February, and this was in Billings, Montana, so similar to here, you get quite a bit of snow out there. And I remember Kayla, my wife, she's a physician, and so I'm in good hands with her. She'd give me my medication and take good care of me and change my bandages and she sat me down and said she's going to leave with the kids for a while so I can have some peace and quiet. And she gave me my spirometer and told me to rest. And the second she left, I took that spirometer and I threw it on the bed, and I shuffled over to the windows and I looked outside and saw that nobody's been shoveling the sidewalk. And so I put on my boots and I put on my jacket, and this is a couple days after getting home, so that first week or so. And I said I could probably very carefully shovel the driveway, and I could probably shovel those sidewalks, and I'll surprise her when I'm home. And again, the thought process there is that if I'm not doing something, then I'm useless. And if I'm useless, then, that doesn't feel good, right? When you're taken out of commission and you're used to getting things done. So I went outside and I did very gingerly at first push that shovel. And I was like, this isn't too bad, okay? And I knew it flew in the face of the advice my surgeon had given me. And he told me a horror story of a patient who had done push-ups when he went home, and how that ended, and so I knew to be careful. But after a few minutes of that, I had some chest pain. I had feared that I had done something to my stitches, and that did not feel good. And I realized very quickly that I made a critical mistake, and so I shuffled my way back inside, and the stitch area hurt, okay? And then I started to worry, and that worry, I don't know if you're aware, but after heart surgery, you're hyper aware of your heartbeat. But after that surgery, I felt my heart rate going up, okay? And the anxiety of thinking that I did something made it go up. And then my little Apple Watch, of course, flared me a little notification, you have a high heart rate. And so I watched it creep up from 130 to 140, and now the anxiety's building. Okay, and the more anxious I'm getting, the higher that heart rate is going. And the higher the heart rate's going, the more anxious I'm getting, okay? And that led to a feedback loop, which some people might refer to as a panic attack, essentially. But it kept going and going, and it kept getting higher and higher. Heart rate's now 200, and I'm sitting inside, and luckily, and at that point, if you're having a panic attack, the two thoughts you're having are, you're either, you're gonna die, okay? That's the perception always, which is what makes it such a volatile feedback loop. But I had a few tools in my mental health toolkit, and I realized what was happening, and luckily I was able to do some breathing exercises like as Dr. Last talked about earlier, the psychologist, and those truly are helpful. And not just the breathing and the deep breathing, but also telling yourself that it's going to be fine. And so took a few deep breaths, took some time, watched the heart rate go down and down and down until it stabilized. And so that was a wake-up call and a humbling experience too, because I had imagined that I would power my way through this recovery. I would just handle it. But the reality is that it takes a real physical toll on you, and it's not something you can power through. So you had to adjust to that temporary dependence and reduce activity. You're feeling easily agitated and exhausted. And like I said, you have that strong desire to get back at it. But after that incident, I did take it easy. And luckily, I have a very supportive wife, and my children were also very helpful. They knew not to roughhouse with me, and they knew that I'd be not carrying anybody around for a while. So I made it through the first 3 weeks. And that was big, because after 3 weeks, something happens, and you feel much better. Then we start the first 3 months. And at that point, your cognitive clarity returns. I don't know if it has to do with just the experience of having a surgery and your body going through that, or the medications that you're on, or a combination of all of that. But after the first few weeks, that cognitive clarity comes back. You feel less agitated. You feel more hopeful. And then a big turning point is cardiac rehab. So cardiac rehab was great, because that gave me that outlet that I needed. I needed to go in there. I needed to move my body. They had a great team in there that met me where I was physically. Of course, I had trained before surgery. I wanted to be as healthy as I could. And afterwards, I was very eager to get back to it. And it's also a great confidence boost to run laps around the octogenarians in there. So that was great too. They were all supportive. But now you're rebuilding routines and movement and growing confidence. And so that emotional aspect of recovery was really the most surprising to me. I had known the physical recovery would be hard, but I had no idea just how tough emotionally that could be. And just thinking about it brings me back to that time. But you know, some lessons were learned, and of course I look at everything as, you know, what did you get out of this experience? And some of the big lessons are, you know, I cannot force recovery, and I think that's important for anybody who's had surgery or who's going to have surgery to remember. It's not something that you can will yourself through. Your body has to do its thing, and you have to let your body basically heal, and you need the rest. You need to do what the doctor says. You don't need to impress anybody, so you just need to sit down and breathe in that spirometer and follow your medication regimen. So patient compliance, very important. Another thing I needed to learn, and that I did learn, is that I will need to depend on others sometimes, okay? So you need to let caregivers be caregivers. Okay, and that was a big lesson, because while you're the one who's going through the surgery, you know, your wife, your husband, your kids, your mom, they're going to be going through it with you. And it's going to be very important for them and for their emotional well-being to be able to take care of you. So something I learned is to just let people take care of you when you're in need like that. And that goes along with accepting support and then being thankful and showing gratitude for that support. So another thing that I learned was to control what I can. Okay, I could not control the speed at which my body healed. Okay, I couldn't do anything about that. I can't control, you know, this chronic health condition that I have, or this heart problem that's going to be you know, kind of a reoccurring issue throughout my life. But what I can control is are the health choices that I make. So I can stay physically fit. I can eat right? I can avoid, you know, gaining weight. I can avoid smoking. That's an easy one. I can just make healthy choices that won't exacerbate my current or existing health issues. And another thing that I can do is I can choose what attitude I have. So mindset and mood were really as big a part of my recovery as medications and rehab. So you can control quite a bit when it comes to your health. And it's also very empowering knowing that you can control your attitude that you take towards your recovery. And then finally, the biggest lesson learned was there's a lot to be grateful for. In generations past, you know, many of the things that we have surgeries for now would have been a death sentence, and you wouldn't have had those extra decades of life. So gratitude that we have the surgeons that we have the doctors and the medications and the pharmacists and the providers. And gratitude for the medical technology that we have, these cool heart valves that we can use, right? And, you know, finally, gratitude for your support system, especially my wife and my kids. So that's them. So cute family, and of course you can see the 1-year-old being carried, and you know, good advice is don't carry your kids too much, because now he's 4 years old and he still wants to be carried. So lesson learned there as well. So thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I appreciate this event. I appreciate the support that it gives people who are going through who have gone through surgery or who expect to go through surgery, and for their families too. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Philip, for sharing your story. Thank you for being a part of the Rock from the Heart community and for joining us today. Your presence and engagement make a huge difference in raising awareness and building a stronger support network for those affected by aortic and heart valve disease. Thank you so much for attending today.